Welcome to the Hyper Voice. I am your host, Stephen Morioka, and I am joined on this episode today by Alexander Hill.
Hello, Stephen.
And our guest for today, Matt Swanson.
What's up?
And Rebecca Cartwright.
Hello, everybody.
And today we are doing an episode on the TO. And luckily enough, we've brought on two great ones, in our opinions at least. Both Matt and Rebecca are two of our local TOs in the Chicago area. And we just wanted to do an episode kind of covering the behind the scenes, week to week, day to day of a tournament organizer, which is what the TO is short for. But basically, why don't we just start off with, the simplest question possible. Why and how did both of you become TOs?
I'll have Rebecca start on that one.
Okay. I kind of stumbled into being a TO. I started out as a league owner, and then after being a league owner for a while, all of a sudden TPCI decided that league owners should run tournaments. And so with the poof, the wave of a magic wand, all of a sudden I was a tournament organizer and had to try to learn how to do that. So I started out on the card game side with that. And then once my younger son decided to play video game, well, you can't play favorites. You can't have tournaments for one kid without tournaments for the other kid. So I had to learn all this video game stuff, and then applied to run Premier Challenges right at the beginning of the application period for those.
Yeah, that was 2014?
Yes. Yep, I got a DS for Mother's Day that year, and then I spent the next couple of months obsessively learning everything I could about VGC.
That sounds about right from what I remember.
Yeah, I started running PCs that September.
Yeah, and I believe that was the first run of Premier Challenges too, I believe.
It was. I was
in the very
in.
beginning.
Yeah, that's right.
I was in from the beginning.
Nice. Yeah, my journey into Pokemon TOing is a little bit less glamorous, I guess. It's actually started out with me running Smash Bros. Tournaments at my college. That's where I kind of got my initial idea to become like a tournament organizer. It was kind of weird because I was kind of pushed into that without really knowing what I was getting myself into. Because I had started being a TO just because I made the bracket for this tournament I hosted in an apartment, but regardless, aside from my Smash TOing, that's a whole different other side of me. I got into Pokemon TOing through Rebecca, actually. I went to one of her early PCs and kind of asked her, hey, I was interested in maybe running or hosting one of these Pokemon tournaments, and I kind of just asked her how you sign up on Pokemon.com to become a TO, and one step led to another, and I got my approval for Premier Challenges at the beginning of this year. And actually, it was in December. My first PC was in January of this year, and I've been running PCs for 9 months. So it's been a whirlwind adventure.
I have to say, I'm just ridiculously impressed with Matt. I mean, I brag about him all the time. I'll say, look, this is a guy who became approved to run Premier Challenges before his 21st birthday.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous. I do brag a lot.
That's impressive.
It is really impressive to me. And one of the really great things about Matt as a TO, and, we hope for all of us as TOs, is that we're always trying to be better. And when things maybe don't go as well at a tournament as we hope, that we take a moment and we try to reflect and, ask some people we respect what we could have done differently. And I think that's a really great thing about Matt, that he embraces that part of TOing.
Yeah. I appreciate all the compliments. Rebecca, well, I'll give it back to you here. Rebecca's been an awesome TO this entire time. She's put the Chicago scene on her back, and she's helped me a lot whenever I've had TOing questions. She's been super helpful with the newbie on the block with whatever weird scenarios happen at any of my tournaments. I usually send her a Facebook message, say, hey, Rebecca, what do I do?
I've learned to keep my phone on me at all times.
Yeah. It's been pretty crazy so far, so.
So how does one go about becoming a TO if somebody was looking to start hosting tournaments on their own?
Well, it's kind of a two-step process. I find when a lot of people ask me, hey, how do I become a TO? If they're video game players, really what they mean is, how do I host premier challenges? Because, I want to help out players in my scene, or it just looks really cool to host them. I don't know. But to become a TO, just kind of generically, you have to apply to be part of the professor program. And you do that right on the Pokemon website. You find the information about the professor program. You click a link. And then you can choose what track of the 3 tracks you want to pursue. I mean, obviously you can pursue all of them if you'd like, but one of them is to be a TO. So you apply, you answer 10 questions, mostly multiple choice, a little bit of essay, and then you submit it to Pokemon. And if you pass the test, they ask you to do a background check. So that's all done online. And if you pass the background check, then you're approved as a basic TO. And then if you want to run video game tournaments, you also need to be a video game judge. You need to have at least the basic certification to be a video game judge. So that's the first step.
And yeah, to run PCs, you don't necessarily need to be certified for VG Judge. It is super useful to have. You can get somebody else who has that certification with you to judge for you. So it's not necessarily required. I didn't know that at first, so it kind of delayed my process a little bit because you can only do 1 certification per month. So I ended up taking VG Judge first when I should have been taking TO, but oh well, I still ended up in the right place.
Yeah, that's interesting because I thought, one of the challenges with Pokemon and working through the professor program is that TPCI does still have some bugs. They're trying to do a lot of new things all at the same time. And so there are some glitches in the professor program. And I do know of people who have been certified as a TO, but haven't been able to sanction the kind of tournament they want if they're not also a judge for that kind of tournament.
That's interesting. I'm not sure if I'm too aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, and different people, because, Matt and I are part of a TO community and we share stories and try to figure out what's going on. And you'll hear different kinds of stories from people who have even the same level of certification. So I think TPCI is still working out some bugs in their professor system and then how that relates to sanctioning tournaments.
So from what I remember, Rebecca, you didn't actually go through this process to become a tournament organizer, but Matt, you did. Is that correct?
I applied for PCTO. It's actually a separate process for that. You go onto the professor forums and you fill out like a 5-question forum post. Basically, it's just you respond with where you're from, if you have Wi-Fi or not at your location, or and then why you want to run tournaments. Those were the basic things you needed for being approved for Premier Challenges, aside from taking the professor test. I'm not exactly sure how Rebecca started off in the forums. I'm not sure if there was like a sign-up thread there or not. Maybe she could fill us in on that.
Yeah, I mean, I started out in the old system. So there was just the professor test if you wanted to be a professor. And it was completely card game and then general.
Oh, card game.
Yeah, there was nothing. So yeah, I took it back in the old days when it was this incredibly difficult test. I mean, I would study for a week to be prepared for the test every year when I went through recertification. So no, I initially became a TO just, by TPCI telling me I could. But then when we transitioned to the new system where now there are those 3 tracks, one for TO, one for card game judge, and one for video game judge, I was grandfathered in at certain levels because you can be a basic stage 1 or stage 2, which is pretty adorable, for each of those 3 tracks. So those of us who'd been in for a long time, we were grandfathered in at certain levels based on what we had already done. But then within a year, those grandfathered levels expired, and then you had to reapply. So I just, this summer, had to take the stage 2 TO test, which I had been grandfathered in as a stage 2 TO. So this was my first time having to actually take that test. So that was an interesting experience. It was all essay questions.
Now, when you say essay questions, what kind of questions are we talking about, if you're allowed to tell us?
I can't give you specifics, but I can say that at that level, it was a lot of questions. I mean, it was things that happened at big tournaments in real life. So it was a lot of different things that could go wrong, and how would you handle them?
Yeah.
So a lot of different scenarios. So I wrote, I don't know how many hours I was writing in order to answer those questions. But I'm proud to say I passed with 100%.
Yay!
Yay!
That's awesome.
That is really cool.
Thanks. I'm up now to take the stage 2 video game judge test. And I'm a little bit scared to death.
Yeah, the TO questions are a mixture between like running kind of like running Tom questions. The Tom is the program that organizers use to print pairings, basically. So it's a mixture of those kind of questions talking about Tom, and then TCG judge related questions, or they're phrased as TCG questions, which really throws me off, but they're more related to like the TOing side of things. So I get super intimidated whenever I see a card game question on a test. I'm like, I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, I could imagine that. That could be tough for, someone, especially for both of you who I guess I would like to say focus on the video game. Now, Rebecca, I know you do the card game as well.
Yep, I run card game tournaments as well, because, you got 2 kids, you gotta run both kinds of tournaments.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that there are different stages of judging and TOing, and so what is the difference between these stages, and how do you maintain the level that you're at?
The difference is on the TO certification track, it affects how many tournaments you're allowed to have sanctioned at any given time. So if you're a basic TO, I think you can only have like 1 or 2 tournaments sanctioned at any given time. I don't know the exact number. Whereas as a stage 2 TO, I've never had a single problem, even when I was running 2 PCs a month last year, plus my league challenge, I could run all of that. I could schedule 2 months out, and I never had a problem. So that was really nice flexibility. The way we maintain or move up in our certifications is based on how many events we run, or if we're judging, how many tournaments we judge. Right. To maintain a basic level certification, you just have to, do whatever your job is at X number of tournaments.
I believe it's 6.
Is that? Thank you.
Yeah.
And then when you are moving up to stage 1 and stage 2, you have to have a certain number of events total, but then you have to have a subset of that are premier level events.
So like premier challenges and
right.
Such.
As opposed to like a weekly store tournament.
Yeah.
That would cut it for basic, but it doesn't cut it for stage 1 and stage 2 to maintain or move up in the certification track.
I see. Seems like a very grueling process. Maybe it's harder than I'm making it out to be. But you guys kind of mentioned, the reasons why I got into TOing. Have you guys had any kinds of struggles about being a TO? And, what's kind of the hardest thing about doing it, running an event?
That's a good question. I have I think about my struggles or challenges in a couple of different tracks, really. One of them is I'm a parent. So while I'm running a tournament, I'm also trying to make sure my children are staying calm. If they lose a match, that they're able to accept that and move on. If they need a snack, to make sure that they've gotten a snack, all while I'm trying to, do a good job running my tournament. So I find sometimes that's a little challenging. Or, one of my kids wants to come up to me and say, I won my match. And, I'm the TO. I can't woohoo, high five them. That's not appropriate. So they've had to learn over the last couple of years to be really subtle in how they share that kind of, that kind of stuff with me.
Yeah, I would say my one of my struggles has been, communicating with parents. Unlike Rebecca, I do not have kids.
That's a good thing at your age.
Yeah. I haven't, my typical tournament clientele, I'm used to like like filthy mouth Smash Bros players that have no filter. And just going from that to talking to like parents of competitors that come in is just such a weird thing to happen for me. It's just I've gotten better, honestly.
Yes, you have. You've asked questions. I've been able to use my experience because I talk to parents a lot. I find it's really important to talk with parents and get their buy-in and understanding of what we're doing. Well, and the people who come to Pokemon tournaments are kind of quirky people. So talking to quirky people is sometimes a little more challenging, even though we're all fairly quirky ourselves.
Yeah, that is definitely one trait that's shared by a lot of Pokemon community members, I would say.
Yeah, I think we can all attest to that at some degree.
Yeah.
I did want to add in something else about struggles. One of the things that I really grapple with is doing a good job for my players, given the limited resources that I have, and the fact that we don't always get timely information from TPCI. In terms of resources, players would love streaming. Streaming's great, but who do I get to stream? And I can't afford to pay them. I mean, I struggle to make sure I can pay for my printer ink and my paper and my judge and, all of those sorts of things and prizes and that. So we don't have a lot of support from TPCI. So I want to do all these great things for the players, but I don't have anyone volunteering other than Matt sometimes, bless his heart, to step up and do that. So that's a real challenge.
Yeah, looking at streaming, I actually streamed my last Premier Challenge, which was last week, and I had no one to help me because everybody was playing in the tournament. One of my friends helped when he was done with his matches, but I was kind of torn between should I be in the main player area where all of my players are judging, or should I be in the TO or the stream station area where I'm supposed to be like running the stream? So it's really hard sometimes for TOs to provide streaming for like Pokemon players, just because you need the staffing to make it work. And you basically need somebody to not compete. That's one of the biggest drawbacks, I would say, is it's just hard to find people who can commentate, because the way Swiss works, you can't like run the stream and be in the tournament at the same time. It's not really feasible, I guess. So yeah, that's definitely one of the harder challenges of trying to be a TO and trying to broadcast your tournament to the world.
I do have to give credit to our VGC players, though, with how much they will tell us about what they're passionate about. And, I'd like different prizes, and we'd like it if you guys would stream. And, there's so many ideas, which is great. I can talk to players at any of my tournaments or, any larger event and get so many good ideas. Some of them we can't really execute, at least at this point. We can't, but it really helps to keep that information flowing and those ideas flowing, so that when there are things we can do, we have a body of ideas to pull from.
Right. And if anybody has any specific ideas on prizing, let me know, because I'm always looking for prizing ideas.
Prizing, yes. Pretty much the answer is not packs.
I was just going to say.
But then we ask you guys what you want, and we don't have any clear answers.
Yeah.
So that's tough, because we want to have valuable prizes for you, but it's hard to know what that is.
I don't know. What do you guys like for prizes, Steven and Alex?
Yes, good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. Honestly, some of the simpler things, like I know at Rebecca's tournaments that I've been to, just, getting a card that will pay for your entry fee at the next tournament that has an entry fee is always something nice, because, you kind of if you paid for that tournament and you earned that, you kind of earned back what you paid to get into it, which is kind of nice. And then it also allows you to go to another tournament, and just get in for free, which is really nice. Honestly, I agree that figuring out what to give what as prizes is really difficult just because the Pokemon community has such a wide variety of different age groups. And so you don't know exactly what's going to satisfy everyone because you need prizes for the little kids that are going to want like more toys and stuff like that. But like for certain adults, those toys aren't going to mean anything or and you want to like make sure that it's balanced between different age divisions. Whereas like maybe the juniors and seniors get certain things and you want to make sure that like the masters aren't missing out if or vice versa if the prizes are just not equal just because different people are different into different things. It's kind of difficult to find exactly what you want for all these different people.
Yep, I'm always trying to be very mindful that I'm not asking the masters at my tournaments to pay for Callum to get prizes.
Yeah.
So he usually, I'm like, you're 9 and, you just have to come to these tournaments and no, you don't get a prize this time because you're the only junior. So my kids are learning.
That actually happens a lot. Just having to have prizes for like junior senior division. It's kind of like, is it really worth it? Because a lot of the times it's only 1 or 2 entrants for those divisions. So it's just like, do I spend extra money on making sure that every single division has it? I mean, most of the time the answer is yes, because you have to, basically.
Wow, I was going to say the answer is no, but
sometimes. I mean,
I'm the mean mom.
It depends. Like, if you think you're going to get more than like 2 per division, then I would say yes. But I don't know.
I mean, I'd say a lot of masters get really excited about the plushies, though.
That's true.
I'm always astonished. Like, some of the masters players just about squeal with the plushies, and then others are like, ugh, I wouldn't want a stuffed animal.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, about that. You guys asked earlier about what kind of prizes we'd like, and I was about to say, the plushes. I always think those are cool. I'm starting a nice collection in my room now, so that's always nice. I always love adding to it. Yeah, and I actually kind of forgot about when Alex mentioned those vouchers for, a next tournament to enter. I always thought those were really cool, and about that is that when you get a brand new player coming into a VGC tournament like that, and they do well enough to earn a voucher or something, and they see, oh hey, I can use this at the next one. It's kind of a nice, enticing advertisement and a nice prize to get them to come to more tournaments in the future. And lastly, does anyone else have anything to add on those struggles or prizes before we move on?
Nope, I think I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, but where I was going with that was, you say you get a brand new player in one of your tournaments. You've never seen this person before, and especially in the coming months when we start VGC 2017, we get a brand new generation of games and Pokemon, and I imagine we'll see another wave of new players entering the competitive scene. So I feel like that would be a good thing for them, but I kind of just wanted to ask a general question. When you see a brand new player at a tournament, they haven't done any of these things in person before. They don't even have a pop ID. Kind of what's your reaction to seeing a new player and, kind of whether they continue to show up or not, in a future tournament or not? Or what do you feel like is your job to, give them the best experience to, keep them engaged and keep coming to these tournaments?
I would say that just welcoming them to the tournament is a good start. Greeting them, making sure they know what the expectations are at any one of the tournaments, handing them a team sheet, letting them know how to fill it out, and just being positive and providing a great tournament environment for them. Just being super excited. That's all I do.
I do a lot of the super excited too. Like I almost overdo it when I see a new player, not the masters. Masters players, I'm like, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
But you know me, I'm so
Sounds
cool.
like it.
But particularly when it's junior or senior who's a new player, I really overdo oh my gosh, I'm so happy that you've come to this tournament. This is a fantastic thing for you to do. I'm impressed that you've come to your first, in-person tournament. And like Matt said, you hand them the team sheet and you explain how to fill it out. You don't just hand it to them or point at the team sheets. You try to make sure that they don't have to say, but wait, I don't know how to fill this out. Because if you're new at a place, you already know that you don't know a lot of things. You don't want to have to say that out loud. So I think a lot about the comfort level of the players. And I know I get nervous in new situations, so I always try to remember what that's like for them.
Yeah.
And, when they have, when it's a kid with the shiny Groudon and you have to tell them that's not okay, it's hard. And so, I try really hard to be really positive in the way I talk about things and make sure that it doesn't in any way sound like I'm judging them or, oh my gosh, you screwed up, you bad hacking person. Because, kids get things in trades, they don't know what's going on. And so I think it's really important to come from that place of understanding and to help welcome them into that.
Yeah, it's especially a situation like that. It's about maintaining a calm tone, not being accusatory at all. And yeah, just going back to how I help new players, it's one of the main things I do is just kind of stay with them for at least the first couple of rounds. If they have any questions or don't know how to set up the rules, and have any specific questions about what the regulations are, that's one of the hugest things I think. If you're new to a tournament structure, you're not going to know exactly, how everything's formatted, what the rules are. So just being there, just having a physical presence in the room, kind of nearby newer players is really helpful. And just being kind of courteous, just being a good person. That's what being a TO is all about. Making sure people have a good time.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I like, Matt's point about, kind of staying with them, not in a freaky stalker kind of way for a couple rounds, but, checking in with them. So if they finish a match early, because, when it's their first tournament, they're probably going to, get beaten pretty quickly. So, I will walk over and say, so, how's it going so far? Or, have you, with a kid particularly, I'll say, have you learned anything from, your match, or what was your best Pokemon in that match, so that they don't feel adrift. Because everyone, all the players who know each other in between rounds, they chit-chat in groups. And when you're conspicuously the one who isn't in a group, it feels weird. Or sometimes I will, if I have one of, you guys that I know well at a tournament, I'll say, hey, Steven, so-and-so is at his first tournament today. As sort of a hint, talk to this person,
right.
Because otherwise you guys don't, you don't know necessarily. But I found that our community, especially in Chicagoland, is so welcoming of new players that I don't usually even have to do that. You guys keep a pretty good sense, and you're very welcoming.
Yeah. I guess it's a little bit weirder for me down south because most of my new players I just take from my Smash Club.
Oh.
Yeah. So they're already my friends, my personal friends, so I'm just trying to this is basically a conspiracy for me to get all of my Smash friends in the door and play Pokemon.
Bringing them to the dark side.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a nice pool of people to just pull from. Just keep pulling those Smash players and converting them, and then eventually you'll have a very healthy scene down there.
Yeah. There's been quite a few Smash players that have gotten better. They're still bringing some weird teams, but I help them out as much as I can.
Well, and you weird teams are fine. And some of it, one of the things I also talk with as players, especially the kids, as they come to more tournaments, if they're not doing as well as they might think, we talk about their goals. Is your goal to get to Worlds? Or is your goal to have fun just at this tournament? Is your goal to do well locally? Because depending on what your goal is, you're going to have different things you do to prepare and different expectations when you go into a tournament.
Yeah, I also feel like maybe they're there out to meet people. And, I guess speaking from more of a player's perspective, Alex and I aren't, in any organizational form for Pokemon at all. And, from what I've seen, Alex has been pretty helpful when we get newer players to the scene. Alex, what are your experiences been so far with that?
Well, I always enjoy just seeing the local scene grow because it means a lot to me. Just to see like more and more people come to our local events, just our PCs in general, because the bigger the tournaments, the more fun they tend to be, and friendship is a big part of why I play the video game championships and go to these events, is because you get to meet these people in real life, and so that's what's really fun about it. And just a little fun personal story: when I was one of those new players, it took me a couple of events to start making like some of the friends there, because like Rebecca said, the players who have been around, who are experienced, will chat in circles and kind of talk to each other. And so one of the I would say probably the first friend that I made at one of these premiere challenges was Steven's mom, who sometimes comes to the events. Me and my girlfriend were just sitting across from her between rounds, and we just like started talking, and she was very welcoming, and she's just been super nice to us ever since we've like started talking back in like 2014. And so it's been very fun. I've made so many friends, and it's just because of the friendly environment that these tournaments create, and that's what I really appreciate about tournament organizers and premier challenges, is that it's a great place to make friends, and that's a really fun aspect of it.
See, this is why I don't know this story, just because I was out of state for school at this time. So that's cool to know.
Yeah, I guess that's true, Steven. You weren't around at the time, and I was trying to remember why you weren't there exactly, because sometimes in the fall, you don't like to go to those fall events, so I figured maybe you were just taking time off, but I forgot, yeah, you were at school, and so that's why you weren't at the events. And then you started showing up, and I was just like, oh man, like this experienced guy is back, and he's gonna like dominate our premier challenges now. Not that I was doing well anyway, but
it's a toss-up between Steven and Kamal. They went back and forth, I remember.
Well, we also had Colin
with like
at the time.
being in and out.
Yeah, Colin
being in and out of tournaments.
Like with like premier challenge wins. I remember. It was weird. There was a time where Kamal would win a lot of Rebecca's PCs, but then Steven would win all of Suzanne's PCs. Which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah, maybe different rooms have different vibes or something.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, going back to Alex's point about building friendships, that's what I'm truly passionate about TOing. That's why some days, like if I'm super stressed about something related to TOing, or there's just a huge event coming up that I don't feel prepared enough for, I just go back and remember, oh, this is why I'm doing it, to build these friendships. I'm bringing people together that normally or maybe possibly would have never met each other, So it's comforting to know that I'm building relationships outside of the game itself, which is really neat.
Yeah, when I talk to, like when I talk to my mom or talk to, people I know who aren't in Pokemon, and I try to explain these connections, I describe it as my tournament family. And I've heard some other players, some of the kids that I know talk in that same way about, the connections and the support. I mean, at a Premier Challenge, it's not massively high stakes, but then you build those relationships, and then when you're all at regionals and the stakes are much higher, you have this built-in network. I mean, I know team. I can walk. Yes, I mean, I can walk around and talk to any one of you guys and say, how are our people doing? And someone will rattle off the record of like 7 different players, because everyone is checking up on everyone else and making sure we're doing okay.
Yeah, that was definitely me at Nationals. I went 0-3 and just kind of hung out the rest of the day.
Well, you're putting your powers into TOing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the community needs more competitive players to, take a little time out and become a TO. I think that's really important.
I feel like coming from just being a player, it's really rewarding to build your own scene and watch it grow and watch your players have success at larger tournaments. It's really cool to see happen. Geez, I never thought, going into playing VGC or God, even playing Pokemon back when I was at Journey Across America. I never expected to, be at this point in my life where like I'm actually running these cool tournaments. Like, so crazy to me.
You're the grown-up in charge.
I know.
And like you guys mentioned, having like these communities at the major Pokemon events, having them support you, that was like a really big deal for me at 2015 US Nationals when that was my first like breakout tournament. And nobody knew who I was, and I was just kind of like going alone, all the way up to the top 8, and like people, the people that were cheering for me were all the people at these Illinois PCs that I had like talked to. They were all like, "Wow, look at Alex go!" And like I like remember when I was playing on one of the TVs, like all of them were over there watching, and they were all cheering for every move that like I made correctly, and then just really rooting for me. And it was really cool to have that sense of like community backing me up, that because we were all just really close friends from going to these events. And I remember once I had made it to like the top 8, one of the first people I wanted to tell was Rebecca, because it had meant so much that I had all these premier challenges to go and practice at, and I had never cut one before, and I had finally cut an event, and I felt like a large part of it was due to just being able to go to so many tournaments that Rebecca had hosted for us.
Oh, and you gave me a shout out in your Nugget Bridge report, which was my very first and I think only shout out ever. So let that be, a lesson to all the rest of you. Like, give me some more shout outs and I'll keep running your tournaments.
Yeah. You gotta give credit.
Nice.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I remember reading that, and kind of just, speaking of a brand new players, kind of entering the scene, sometimes it can be hard to break into some of the, closer, longer social circles that have been lasting around, and, just, come in and say hi. We're pretty nice people, and we'd like to always include others, especially if you're interested in continuing to play the game. We tend to be very welcoming. We want you to keep coming, because attendance, especially this year, we always want to keep increasing attendance because it helps everyone, just in terms of a, conversational perspective in talking about different Pokemon strategies. And then when you just look at the raw data and numbers, it gives people more prizes and points, etc., heading into the new season.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, there is a somewhat touchy subject that, Rebecca, you brought up while we were prepping before the show, and this was about player transparency from the TO's perspective. So I kind of wanted you to talk a little bit about that, and I kind of want to get more of an idea of what you meant by that.
Oh, I don't know if it's really a touchy subject. What I meant was that I think it's really important for TOs to be as transparent, as open as we can be with the players about the kinds of things we can do, the things we can't do. If you're not studying up on every last thing, or you don't have, friends who are on the TO or judging side, you might not know some things. Like, I've had some players say, well, why don't you lock the battle boxes? That would be so much easier than the way you do these PCs. So that's an opportunity. So, I could just say, no, I can't do that. Or I could explain the situation. And I think it's the teacher in me, or the mom in me, or something. I like to explain those kinds of things. Actually, I think it's the teacher, because when I was teaching community college, I always liked to explain to my students like what I could do and what I couldn't do, or what it means to teach, or how I prepare for a lesson. Because I think every time you pull the curtain back and you explain what's going on behind the scenes, it helps. Because you guys become more educated consumers of the tournament circuit if you know what we're doing. Or if you're frustrated with us, like I remember back when we could only do best of one for PCs, I would have players complain to me about that and then ask, well, why can't we do more? Why can't we do best of 3? And I'd have to explain, well, that's not my choice as a TO. That's a decision that's made at a higher level.
Well, thankfully, we can now actually choose that, thankfully.
I know! Yeah. It's amazing!
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that's, kind of a fine line, and I don't know if it's easier as you get older or what, but I think if you're going to be transparent, you need to do it in a professional way. So, I'm not going to complain about something from TPCI. I understand, they're short-staffed, they're trying to do a lot of things, and so I do my very best to not grumble about things, but I will listen to what players say, and then I will respond in a professional way with the information that I can share.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add to that. I think Rebecca covered most of the bases there. So.
See, you can tell I used to be a professor of a whole different sort.
Yes.
I'm sure it's come very useful in the Pokemon side of things.
I mean, really, I just like to hear myself talk. So I've just tried to move to, whichever careers will let me talk and make as many people as possible listen to me.
Yeah, and I appreciate like the amount of professionalism you give to your Pokemon TOing. Just whenever I see you at a tournament, it's like you're just either explaining something to somebody in a very detailed, specific way, or just making sure people are having a good time. So appreciate that.
Aw, okay, this is great for my ego. Can Matt and I be guests all the time?
Yeah.
And you can say nice things about me? Because I like that. But I do think the explaining I think the explaining side is important. And I do spend a ton of time also explaining things to parents. Because when your new player is a kid, and the parent doesn't understand what's going on, and they think they're going to have to leave after the kid loses one round, and then you have to explain what Swiss means, and all kinds of things. The more people understand, the better decisions they can make. And if you can put a good interpretation on what you've got going on, then they're probably going to come back to your events, and that's good for everybody.
Yeah, that's a huge factor, I think, when talking with parents, is just making sure that they have a kind of a layman's understanding of, how tournaments are run and what the expectations are. So. Yeah,
because they're the ones who are going to have to support their kid on the drive home if the kid's, crying or confused or upset. And I try to get, because, we've had those days in my car. So, I try to think of ways that I can give parents, tools or, some framework to put this weird Pokemon experience in that they can use for their kids.
Yeah, I can certainly understand that perspective. And I guess, that pretty much covers that topic. That's kind of just really what I wanted to hear. And I just like what I wanted to hear from TOs, talking about to the player side. But you were just talking about some situations that might have people upset, or someone might be upset. I was wondering, and I'm sure other players would want to ask their TOs as well, what kind of horror stories do you guys have as TOs?
Oh my goodness. So back to that professionalism thing, there's certain things that, we obviously can't share. But I do have a rather spectacular experience from my last PC, I have two kids. One is in juniors, one is in seniors. They each play different games. My junior is in video game. My senior is in card game. But once in a while, he thinks it's fun to cook up some, crazy team and then play it in a PC. So attendance tends to, yay. Attendance tends to be a little low in the junior senior department. So, round one, who's paired against each other at my last PC? My two kids.
Oh,
and
no.
My younger one, yes. And so my older one made a really good read, on my younger one, and then he fumbled with a card, because my card game kid only has a 2DS, because I'm not spending the money on a 3DS for him. And so then he dropped a card and made the games freeze because he broke the IR connection. And then my younger one assumed he did it on purpose to psych him out. And my younger one started saying some pretty awful things to my older one.
Oh,
So
no.
my judge turns around to get me, and the two of them have exploded at each other. My younger one is shoving his DS at his brother and saying, "You're cheating!" nice and loud when we had a lot of new players, which was awesome.
No.
And so my judge just looks at me, she's like, "I think this is for you." So I spent most of round one and part of round two trying to diffuse that situation. Now, normally I don't get that derailed as a parent TO, but this was a really extraordinary situation. And I really hope it never, ever happens again.
I
So
don't
bad.
think I have anything that matches that so far.
Brothers swinging at each other in a tournament?
Yeah, no, definitely
Be
not.
be thankful.
Most of my PCs I run down in Central Illinois are pretty tame in comparison.
You'd think a bunch of college students, they might get a little crazy, but no.
Not really. Honestly, they're pretty chill people. Because most of them are friends, so it kind of helps a little bit.
Right.
I wouldn't necessarily call this like a horror story, but it was definitely a very, very interesting day. So if some of you might know this already, I hosted a outdoor premiere challenge on was it Memorial Day weekend? I think
so.
Yeah.
Yes,
it was in May sometime.
On your TO bucket list.
Yeah, this was on my TO bucket list. I've always wanted to host a PC outside in the nice spring weather, and I found a perfect day. Not necessarily a perfect venue because there were a lot of bugs. And it was hot outside, and some of our players were definitely bothered by both of those factors. So the glare on the DSs was pretty bad. I actually gave people our laminated table numbers to use as like sun visors for the DS screens, which worked pretty well, honestly.
Yeah, that was a really good improvised solution, I have to say. Yeah, it was fascinating to see how people handled the bugs. Like, there was one person I noticed, like, in between picking moves, took one of those table numbers and was meticulously squishing bugs with the edge of the table number.
Yeah, it was a very interesting day. I have to give a lot of props to Rebecca for helping me out, because I don't think that was one of the PCs I could have run by myself. Just a lot of different factors, people not being used to the outdoors, kind of played into it.
Yeah, I guess you take a bunch of gamers and say, guys, we have a great idea. Let's go outside for a tournament.
Yeah.
This was, before the Pokemon Go days.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Alex, were you at that tournament?
What's
that? Alex was there.
Yep.
Oh yes, I was there, and it went pretty well. Even though we did find a very shady spot, the sun glare was still very bad, so the visors were definitely necessary. The laminated table number visors, and also another issue was the bathroom. The bathroom was in this like school building nearby, but only like one of the entrances was enterable because there was some kind of function going on there at the same time, and so if you like finished your game early enough, you had to like make sure that you had like 15 minutes to run to the bathroom and then get back, and it was all kinds of crazy. But it was a very fun. Yeah, it was a very fun event though.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm glad Matt did it. Matt had been trying to convince me to run an outdoor PC for like a year, and I kept saying, well, I'm just not quite sure. So I'm really glad he did it. I was happy to judge for him so that I got to experience it, but not have it under my name.
Yeah, and originally I actually wanted to stream it. Unfortunately, we didn't. I think Rebecca brought her DS, and we just didn't have the correct table. So I probably would have been one of the first outdoor premiere challenges with a stream. That would have been amazing, but the logistics
would have totally made up for the bugs.
Right, yeah, it totally would have made up for the bugs. No, the logistics for that unfortunately didn't work out, but I did invite everybody over for barbecue afterwards, which was awesome.
That was really neat.
That was super cool.
Yeah, that was a very fun time.
Yeah. And I think we just like hot dogs and burgers and stuff, so chips and dip. It was great.
Yep, nice cookout.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds really cool. I can't remember why I missed it, but for the new listeners, new players out there, see, this is what the VGC community is all about.
It's going outside.
Well, yeah, that after we were all tortured by bugs and sun and, the outdoors, we were still willing to go over to Matt's house and hang out and share some burgers.
That was great.
It was a lot of fun. And I was also at Rebecca's tournament with her two sons arguing, and I think she handled it pretty well, because I didn't notice any disruption in the tournament flow. The rounds kept coming, we kept playing, and it wasn't very much of a distraction. I just know that there was probably a lot of stress for her, but for the players, she still kept it very professional and very much a good time.
Oh, thank you. I think I know a lot of the credit for that goes to my amazing judge, Gina, who was able to judge and enter things in Tom, collect the match slips. She was wonderful at keeping everything going so that I could divert and try to keep my kids from blowing up the room.
It really is such a bummer that we can only have one Premier Challenge per month now. What do you guys think of that aspect of it? Because I loved going to so many Premier Challenges, not just for the chances at championship points, but just to hang out with all my friends and everybody in the Pokemon community. And it's really a bummer that people can't run more tournaments than one per month now. What do you guys think of it?
I would say that it's helpful for us around the Chicago area because it makes it a lot easier for us to schedule our PCs around each other. I remember last year, especially trying to make a schedule between all three of the Chicago TOs was kind of difficult because without trying to step on each other's weekends, we all have our specific dates laid out in mind, and it might conflict with another TO. So by having only one PC per month, it reduces the chances that we'll end up scheduling on the same date. Although I do understand it's kind of a bummer for areas that only have one TO representing them or representing a large region, especially in I don't know, the middle of the Midwest, out in Iowa, Kansas, Nebraska. I'm sure they only have one or two TOs across probably over 500 miles of
all
each
those
other.
states. Yeah, all those states.
Yeah, I was just thinking there's some listeners who are probably not really impressed with our answer about, we have so many PCTOs in the area.
Yeah.
It was so hard to schedule all our tournaments. I'm sure some people are grumbling.
Yeah.
Shake their fist at the podcast
I do understand that, some areas are not getting as well represented, and that's just, I think that's an unfortunate consequence of the decision that TPCI made with this season.
I mean, I do have to say, as someone who does both card game and video game tournaments, it's certainly easier for me this year because last year I was running 3 tournaments a month, so 2 PCs and 1 league challenge. Plus, I run a very large league every weekend for 3 hours. And I couldn't bring myself to cut back on the PCs because I feel such a commitment to my players that I want to make sure you guys have all the opportunities that you can to earn those points. But I was burning myself out completely running all of those events.
Yeah.
I think I ran... Out of the 18 I could have run, I think I ran 16 PCs in addition to all my other stuff. And it was a lot, especially, as someone, who has an autoimmune disease, I get tired pretty easily. And so I was pushing myself way too hard.
Yeah, I definitely, I feel the TO burnout sometimes too, and it's pretty rough. more on the Smash Bros side of my TOing stuff, but yeah. I remember specifically the mid-season showdown we both, or Rebecca hosted, and I kind of helped out with was.
Oh, you helped out a lot.
Yeah, that was a huge time commitment as far as planning and organizing went. Yeah,
but it was fun.
It
was a very fun event. As players, Steve and I think, can both attest to how well the event was run and how very fun it was to just be there and participate in these new kind of tournaments that we hadn't got to try before.
Yeah. Also, shout outs to my boy Sam VGC. You're the best co-commentator anybody could ask for. We definitely need to go back to come on in at some point, though.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I do want to, I'm sure that's an awesome diversion. I do want to go back just once more to, because because I had a thought, to TPCI cutting it down to one PC per TO per month. We did notice, and this was talked about quite a lot among PC TOs, that last year we noticed our attendance at events. Like once we got through the first month or two where everyone's really excited, almost all of us noticed a drop off in our attendance.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people speculated that it's because there were so many PCs that nobody really felt this overwhelming pressure to make it to this Saturday is because there's going to be another one in a week or two.
Yeah, I could definitely feel some of that in certain players, I guess. I don't know.
My first year, I averaged in the mid-30s for almost all of my PCs. Last year, I averaged in the mid-20s in attendance.
Yeah.
Huh. That's a good point about attendance for Premier Challenges. Makes sense.
I don't know. It could be also related to the format. I know 2016 wasn't as popular as some other formats as far as the players' opinions go. But yeah.
That's a good point.
I think as far as attendance goes, 2017 will turn the corner, and because the new game always brings in a lot of new players, so I would expect attendance to go back up after December.
Yeah, I was going to mention that I'm thinking that Sun and Moon is going to really grow things, and that's exciting.
I'm also wondering if we're going to see any new players because of Pokemon Go.
Yeah, I don't think Rebecca's entirely wrong. I don't think she's entirely wrong about that because, so you see, these players that are getting into Pokemon again through Pokemon Go, maybe they haven't committed to getting a new game and system yet. Maybe because they're like, oh, well, I'm into Pokemon Go now, and I noticed that Sun and Moon is coming out because they've been looking into other Pokemon-related things. And so they're waiting for these new games to come out. And then once they get into these new games, once they're coming out in November, there's a chance that they might get into the competitive side of things and they want to come out to these events. So, yeah, I think Pokemon Go, although I don't see it being huge, it could grow the scene a little bit too, just because it's revitalizing people's interest in Pokemon in general.
Yeah, I guess that remains to be seen until Sun and Moon actually come out. And who knows? We'll see. I'd love to see a bunch of new players coming to my PCs. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, but then you need more staff because the new players who don't know what's legal and then you run into that, it's kind of like you're hosting a party and so you buy tons and tons of chips and dip and then not many people come and then you're stuck with all this chips and dip.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to how many people do you want to have on hand so that you have enough staff, but you don't want to have this glut of staff like fighting each other to help the one new player. So that's another part of the challenge of the TO side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where all the older players come in. That's where we gotta help you guys out.
Yes. Yeah, I do remember at the last PC yelling to one clump of you, I've got a new player who needs help with a sheet. Like, stat, somebody come help me. Yeah, I have been thinking in terms of Pokemon Go. I know on Facebook there are all of these Pokemon Go communities, and I've been thinking about, floating a couple of ideas in the Chicagoland one, saying, hey guys, would you be interested in like a session on, intro to competitive VGC or, an intro to breeding and IVs and, those kinds of things to see if there really is the interest, because I wonder about it, but I haven't done anything about it yet to see if that interest really is there.
Right. I think the time will come. We'll definitely tell them to listen to the Hyper Voice, of course, and, we'll do our best to include them. But, we always thank both, really any TO who runs an event for the players. We understand it's a time commitment, and, just as players, remember to always appreciate what your TOs are doing for you. So just say thank you before you leave.
Pick up trash.
Pick up trash, please. Yes.
Push in the chairs. Pushing in the chairs helps. All those little things help us.
Yeah. Yesterday, oh my gosh. I ran a Smash tournament yesterday, and there's so much trash left behind. I was like, oh, come on, guys.
Now, Pokemon players are pretty good.
Yeah.
And the number of players who come up and say thank you or ask, can I carry something out to the car? It warms my heart every darn time.
Yeah.
Because it's just, it's just so nice.
Yeah, the biggest compliment I can get as a TO is just say thank you to me. That honestly makes my day so much better. I know some people, like, a lot of days, like, TOing can feel like a thankless job, and just going out of your way to say thank you is the most that you can do as a player. It's really meaningful.
Very well said. Now, I suppose we still have time for this. We could do a quick lightning round of the
Oh no, I'm not prepared.
best news and worst news from the 2017 season announcement. So why don't we all go around on what we liked the most and didn't like so much about all the announcements from a few weeks ago about the 2017 season. I'll start with my best news. I liked the format changing earlier in December rather than January.
Well, of course you would steal that one. Of course Steven steals that one because he knows that that's my favorite.
I know.
Steal it? What are you talking
That's
about?
when you say, darn,
We talked
he took
about
my
this in-
answer.
Steven and I have talked about this in previous episodes, so he should know very well that I am very excited for it as well, that I just can't wait for the format to flip on December, and it's nice that it's flipping so much earlier.
Yeah.
And then I guess I can start off since, does anybody else have any other best news that they want to mention?
I do like that the juniors video game bar is higher.
And why is that?
Because in our area, particularly at my league, we had 2 juniors qualify for Worlds. One was my child, who's, I think he ended 11th in the country after Nats. So, a pretty good player. The other kid was one who pretty much just came in second to Callum, just over and over again.
Yeah.
And just by showing up and being okay losing to Callum, she got an invite. And it can give some of those juniors players an incorrect understanding of their skill level. And then I know, like this sweet girl was utterly bewildered then when she went to a regionals and didn't do very well. And she said, but I'm Worlds qualified. So I think, especially for juniors, card game 2, juniors was, the bar was really, really pretty low. So I think for juniors, I like that the bar was up a bit. The other age divisions is a whole nother story, but I think that was an improvement in juniors.
I think that's a really interesting perspective that Steven and I couldn't have really realized ourselves being master players. We're really big
players. You would not know.
You're like super master players.
No, master division players. And so that's really, it's cool to hear that because it's not something Steven and I could have really realized on our own without, having someone who's got experience working with juniors and has a child in the junior division herself. So it's very interesting to hear that.
Yeah.
And I try to talk to you guys about, having juniors and seniors because, they're the future of VGC. So the more you guys, interact with the younger ones and think about, what their issues are, I think it strengthens the community and the future of VGC overall.
And so, I guess moving forward, for the worst news, I'm already, like I mentioned, I'm a bit dissatisfied with the number of Premier Challenges, but there are pros to that. I really dislike the best finish limit for internationals, the tournaments that they'll be hosting in each region, just because the best finish limit is 4, and so you can participate at all of them and get championship points in them, which means the person who travels the most is likely to earn stipends or get the most championship points, and I just don't think that's the best way to go about things.
Well, Alex, you took mine. That was going to be mine. I have grave reservations about that. I belong to a group on Facebook that is for parents of competitive Pokemon kids. So it's a nice community. We support each other, and there's been a ton of discussion on exactly this subject because like a best finish limit for regionals of 4 is pretty crazy. On the card game side, the regional's best finish limit is 8.
Yes, I saw that. That is
crazy.
Crazy.
It's absolutely crazy. And I don't mind making the bar higher for Worlds. It's completely up to TPCI where they want to set that level. That's completely fine. But when you have these high best finish limits, it's like if you have good players and then you have good players with money becomes the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think we're enough of a meritocracy that isn't the way it should go.
And I feel like opening up international tournaments to everyone is also kind of going to affect the CP standings for Worlds too. Just people who are able to fly out to London, for example, are going to be a lot. Americans specifically who are able to fly out to London are going to have such an advantage in the CP standings. I mean, when it doesn't really matter for Worlds invites but when we're talking about day 2 invites, closer to or internationals for the United States, I guess. So no more regular nationals.
Yeah, that's possible. We still have to remember that they still have to do well,
right?
In which they won't necessarily will.
Right, and I don't mind people who have more money being able to take, more bites at the apple, have more chances, because that's fine. People can spend their money however they want. But when those best finish limits are so high, then if they do well, they're going to have such an advantage. And that's the part that bothers me. I don't mind if people can, unlike Matt, I'm okay with internationals being open to everyone, but I think the best finish limit should be 1, maybe 2.
Yeah, and specifically talking about regionals, like you mentioned, it being just 4 for us. 8 in TCG sounds crazy, but even 4 for us is kind of high, just because you typically look at, I mean, we've moved away from the having regionals in bunches in different seasons, I guess, in series. Right. But typically there are like 3 regionals, maybe 4, but usually around 3 that are within range of where you are. So like for us here in Illinois, there are about 3 regionals that I would normally consider going to. And so having a 4 regional best finish limit just doesn't really help me. It just helps the people that are more willing to travel, spend more money going to Pokemon tournaments, whereas I don't want to travel as much. I want to just go to my tournaments, and because of that, go to the tournaments that are closer to me. And because of that, it's going to hurt my chances at getting like a day 2 invite or something like that.
Right. And I think as a parent, well, Sam, my older one runs track in the spring, and he has other activities that he does. So having children in other activities, or having children who are well-rounded, they're kind of at a disadvantage, because I don't want to pull them out of those activities in order to fly to more regionals. So it really seems that Pokemon, or, you think about Masters players who have jobs, if you work retail, if you work food service, like a lot of college students do, you have to work on the weekends. You can take off a couple of weekends to go to regionals, but 8 weekends? Probably not.
Yeah, it's tough for some people to get the time off and be able to go to so many events. And yeah, I can kind of see how that the best finish limit's a little bit unfair to the less advantaged players, I guess. Going back to my favorite thing from the news, because I didn't get to mention this, prize money. Yay! You get prize money at regionals. I'm so excited for that. I wish that was around when I got top 8 at Madison.
Oh no.
That would have been nice.
I can throw in a slight criticism to your favorite thing.
Oh.
Again, speaking
I knew it was coming.
Oh, I know. I'm not really.
I know Rebecca's opinion on this, and I agree with it, but I'm waiting for her to say it, so go ahead.
Oh, see, that makes me want to just force Alex to say it, but I will. So the fine print for the prize money says that in video game, you need to have at least 33 players in the age division in order for there to be any money at all. So sometimes seniors struggles with that. I mean, they tend to do better, but juniors, you almost never see 33 players. So
Right.
We're actually paying more for regionals. If you win regionals, you no longer get a DS. You just get the 2 booster boxes of cards. So on the junior VGC side, we're actually paying more, and our prize support has gone down.
Yeah, I could see how that's a little bit of a disadvantage for junior players. I don't know. I unfortunately fall into the narrow Masters tunnel vision that I know some players fall into, but
Well, and there's more of you guys, so
Yeah.
I get it.
There's a part of Rebecca's point that applies to every age division, and it's that with this prize support comes higher entry fees. And that's actually what I thought you were going to mention, because I had heard you talk about it at another time, is that while prize support is great, not everyone is going to be earning those prizes, and it's going to come at the cost of higher entry fees, very likely. Like, I believe Arizona, I thought they paid $40. I think they paid a $40 entry fee.
40 seems like a number I've seen popping up in a couple of places. Though juniors and seniors, I think, were like 30.
I can, from like a TOing perspective, or like from a like price support perspective, I guess I can kind of understand where that money's coming from, or where that figure's coming from, because that sounds about what you would need for like $5,000 or like $10,000 pot bonus for like a tournament, which is basically what TPCI is doing for regionals. So that's actually kind of typical for I'm going back to my Smash Bros perspective. That's actually kind of typical of what $5,000 bonus tournament would charge for entry fees.
Gotcha. Though, and it makes me wonder about the spirit of Pokemon and what we want to do. One of the things I've loved about our tournaments is you can show up at a regionals never having played before, and people will welcome you, and you might get clobbered, but because of Swiss rounds, you can play all day long.
Right.
And I do wonder how much of that we'll be able to keep with the higher entry fees. I understand the reasons for them, and I understand that it looks like we're moving in an esports direction, but that is one part of Pokemon that was really captivating to me when I was new to this and my children were new.
So in that sense, do you feel like it's kind of leaving the juniors and seniors behind in favor for becoming more like esports?
I don't know necessarily if it's leaving juniors and seniors behind. I think it's leaving more casual players or players who have a variety of responsibilities behind. I think it's much more single-minded, incredibly focused, this will consume all your time players who will succeed in this kind of structure.
Yeah, I think the best approach players can take to this is to balance their time with Pokemon and everything else. You got to find that right balance in your life like you have to do with everything else you do. Yep. So just, you got to work on it, do what's right for you or your family, whatever.
Right, and if someone else is flying to 3 international championships, doesn't mean you have to too.
Right.
It's like your mom says, well, if everyone else is doing that, jumped off a bridge, would you jump off a bridge too? So, and who knows, a lot of players might not.
I already bought my tickets.
Really?
No. I'm not actually going to any of I don't think I'll be flying out of the country for any of the internationals.
I tried to convince my husband that a $6,000 family trip to London at the beginning of December was a great idea, and he wasn't buying it.
Well, see, when they have the Latin America International, I'm not opposed to trying to convince my family to take a vacation coincidentally on the same weekend as this Pokemon event, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. Wish me luck. No, I'm just kidding.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, I don't think it'll fly too well.
Yeah, to be fair, I almost used Seattle Regionals as an excuse to go visit my brother, which is that feels a lot more legitimate.
Yeah, it does.
That's funny.
Unfortunately, couldn't go there. Whatever. Went to Madison though. That was fun.
Well, it is nice we have a schedule for North American regionals. It'd be nice to know when the internationals actually were. The rest of them. We don't know if they're going to be in the middle of the spring, if they're going to all be in the summer. Same with mid-season showdowns. This is going with my not so great news from the announcement. It's just we didn't get news about when these things are happening. So I would have loved to see that, just for scheduling purposes.
Yes, as a TO who did a mid-season showdown last year, scrambling to try to get it booked, and the cool decals, getting those coordinated and made with TOs around the world. It definitely benefits to have a little bit more time to plan, because then we can run better events, and then you guys can also plan better your schedules and make decisions about how many events you can go to if you know when the heck they're going to be.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as mid-seasons go, I mean, a lot of TOs just haven't planned that far ahead or are still looking at venues, so it's really hard to pinpoint a specific date this far in advance for any kind of event, unless it's going to be like something huge or something that's like annual or something like that. So kind of it's from a scheduling perspective, it's kind of hard to plan more than like 4 months in advance, because you never know, something else, some other tournament might come up on the same weekend that conflicts with yours. So
but I'd like to start planning. I already have a notebook set aside for my mid-season showdown. I want to start looking at venues.
Yes.
Just tell me which months. That would help.
Well, we're glad to hear about that.
Yeah.
Well, I consider it like our mid-season showdown. You guys were so helpful. I remember Alex handing out those business cards for the mid-season showdown at Winter Regionals. That was incredibly helpful.
It actually ended up helping out because one of the people that I gave the cards to did come to the event, and then you had a raffle for the two of us because he came to the event and brought the card and showed you. And I remember I won something. I believe I won like some badges, like a badge case.
Yes, the super cool badge case.
Yep. I'm looking at it right now. I can see it on my shelf. It's a very cool badge case. It's very fancy.
Well, I'm glad you appreciate it.
Yeah, maybe get a picture of that later.
Yeah, the viewers can just picture it in their heads. It looks like a little badge case. It's black. It's rectangular prism. It's got a Pokemon logo on it. So there you go, guys. There's my badge case. Just picture it in your heads.
Damn, that's pretty neat.
Okay, so that is a great way to end our episode today. You know, we kind of went over the time we wanted to, an hour, you know, about our shows we end up wanting to run. But thank you to Matt and Rebecca for being on, sharing their experiences as a TO. We really appreciate the other perspective that we as players don't necessarily get very often, if at all.
Oh, it was my pleasure. And, you know, hanging out with Matt and hanging out with you guys is always a joy.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
And as always, thank you for Alex for being here.
Oh, it's very much fun. And I'm not going to go anywhere, Steven.
I hope you don't. Well, let's close this up. Alex, if people wanted to find you on Twitter, they could do that.
At Lexicon VGC.
And Matt, you're on Twitter at?
Swanner BGC.
And Rebecca, I don't believe you have a Twitter, but if people wanted to reach you, how would you recommend people do that?
Yeah, I definitely don't have Twitter. I'm just really overwhelmed by technology, which is funny because my husband works in IT. Probably the best way, I know, isn't that ironic? It's like the shoemakers' children don't wear shoes. Probably the best way is, on Facebook, Ace Trainers League is my Facebook page for everything I do Pokemon-wise, whether it's my league or tournaments, or Ace Trainers League at Gmail is another way to reach me.
You can lastly follow me at Super Morioka. That's it for our show. Thank you for listening to the Hyper Voice. Everyone say goodbye, and we will see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye, guys.
See you around.